Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our special meeting of the Madera City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order at 5:45. Today is Wednesday, May 5th, 2001. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be live streamed in the city website at www.madeira.gov/live. Members of the public may participate in the meeting remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter ID 921-3975-9589, hashtag followed by *9 on your phone to speak. Comments will also be accepted via email at citycouncilpubliccomment@madeira.gov or by regular mail at 205 West 4th Street, Madera, California, 93637. Alicia, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Garcia.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Here.
Councilmember Gallegos is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Montes.
Here.
And Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance during the second phase of our regular City Council meeting starting at 6 o'clock. At this time, I would ask for approval of the agenda. I ask my colleagues, do you have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I ask for a motion from my colleagues.
I've seen the motion.
Second.
Motion to approve the agenda by Councilwoman Anita Evans, second by Artemio Villegas. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Montes.
Yes.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes with 5 yes votes, 0 no votes, and for the record, Councilmember Gallegos is absent.
Thank you very much. We will now move into public comment. Members of the public shall have an opportunity to address the City Council regarding matters on this agenda at the time of the agenda item is called. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any comments from the public, Alicia?
No, Mayor, we do not have any public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. I will now close public comment and we'll move on to item A, consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the council may request an item be removed from the consent calendar and it will be considered separately. Item A1, LS&D Street Subdivision, track number 19-S0-07. I believe Mr. Helmuth, would you be leading this discussion? Oh, no, we will just take it under consideration here. Excuse me a second.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I second it.
Motion by Councilmember Rodriguez to approve the consent calendar, seconded by Councilwoman Anita Evans. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos is absent. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Montes.
Yes.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes with 5 yes votes, 0 no votes, and Councilmember Gallegos is absent.
Thank you very much for that. We will now close the special meeting of the Madera City Council. The time is 5 5:59. And we will open up the regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So if you, during this time, you could mute yourselves. We will be the regular meeting at 6 o'clock. Of the Madera City Council. Today it is 6 o'clock, and today is Wednesday, May 25th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be live streamed at the city's website at www.madera.gov /live. Members of the public may participate in the meeting remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter ID 921-3975-9589, hashtag followed by *9 on your phone to speak. Comments will also be accepted via email at citycouncilpubliccomment@madera.gov or by regular mail at 205 West 4th Street, Madera, California, 93637. We hereby call this meeting to order. Alicia, Madam Clerk, please, would you call the roll?
Mayor Garcia,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
I'm here.
Councilmember Gallegos is absent, Councilmember Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Montes,
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Would you all please stand and join us in the invocation led tonight by Rabbi Paul Gordon?
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Jewish community, thank you for inviting me to come and celebrate this meeting with you. It's always important that we take our civic duties seriously. Lord, we ask your blessings. Hear our call and our plea this evening. Please guide these wise civic leaders in their duties. May you please grant them the ability to discern those matters which are of import to all of us. Give them the ability to hear your voice and your guidance. Grant them all the ability to discern and know for themselves that which is true, and guide them to the right place for all of us. And in your name we pray, amen.
Thank you very much. Would you all remain standing, please, and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ireta?
Yes, ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Rabbi, for those. I will now ask my colleagues for the approval of the agenda. Ask my colleagues if there are any changes or additions to the agenda at this time. We do have a request, if no one has any adjustments, that we pull item D1 under petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinance, and agreements. Would one of my colleagues please make a motion to that effect?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the agenda, removing item D1.
Second.
I second.
Motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item D1 by Councilmember Jose Rodriguez, second by Councilmember Artemio Villegas. Alicia, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Gallegos, absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with Councilmember Gallegos absent.
Thank you very much, Alicia. We will now move into public comment. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be asked but are not required to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold a comment until that item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is open. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusion should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. Alicia, do we have any public comment? I don't see any hands raised.
No, Mayor, no public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. I will now close public comment. We have no written communications. We will now move on to presentations. And under the presentations, we have a presentation by the Department of Public Health update on COVID-19. I believe, Sarah, are you with us tonight? Hi, Sarah.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The good news is that our move temporarily into the red appeared to be just due to a few outbreaks that we had that have been contained. And so we are back in the downward trend in terms of case rate and positivity rate. As of Tuesday, our case rate is 4.9. That places us in the orange, as well as our positivity rate at 2.2%. The great news is that our health equity positivity rate is in the yellow at 1.7%. And so that really shows the really focused efforts to target that hard to reach population, the ones that many have been hardest hit by COVID. And so we're very proud to see that, happy to see that. Our testing rate has come up just a little bit from where it was a few weeks ago. It's now at 290 per 100,000. The state median is at 335, so we're not quite at the state median. It's important for us to continue to promote testing so that we don't have our case rate adjusted up and we're able to move through the tiers. So we encourage anyone who is exposed or has symptoms, even if they've been vaccinated, to be tested, as well as those who are not vaccinated to be tested regularly. And that's one of the key things that people can do to help us continue to move forward, as well as getting vaccinated. We have lots of different kind of focused promotion that we're doing around both testing and vaccination. Our testing pop-up clinics, there's at least 6 every week. And those are posted on our website at maderacounty.com/COVID-19 testing. Every person who's tested at those pop-up clinics receive a $5 gift card. So far, Starbucks has been the favorite, but we always offer at least 2 types so people have a choice. So that would be great if we could continue to promote going to the website, finding those pop-up testing sites and participating. And then vaccination, we've been really focusing on working with school sites to first vaccinate students who are eligible. And it looks like Pfizer is going to be approved for age 12 to 15. Sometime next week, we're anticipating that. So we are prepared to be able to roll out to that population in a couple ways. The first is to continue doing school-based vaccination that targets the students as well as their families and residents in the local area. To make it really accessible and people can go to a location they're very familiar with visiting. So we'll be expanding from really working with high school sites to middle school once Pfizer is approved for that younger age. And then for vaccination of general population, where we've been doing a lot of brainstorming, and right now we have tacos and vaccination that's happening at Pan Am Park in collaboration with the city, and really appreciate working with Arnaldo. He has been amazing through this entire process in working with public health and really making things available to your citizens and residents. And so the first 300 people got 2 tacos after they were vaccinated. And we're looking forward to other kinds of ways to promote vaccination. So welcome your ideas as well. Stephanie, our public information officer, sent me a video of people lined up down the block to get tacos and a vaccine. So that's a great success. Thanks so much for your partnership in that. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Are any of my colleagues wanting to ask any questions today? Any comments? I know I saw Anita out there. She was searching for that taco truck. So I think that was a genius idea. You know, I have a suggestion if you'd like, sushi and vaccines. You know, some different kinds of fare that we have. But I thought it was an ingenious idea to get the taco trucks out there. That was really good.
I believe that was the idea of Supervisor Letty Gonzalez. And certainly on Cinco de Mayo, everyone's in a taco kind of mood. I think that's what we're having for dinner. So.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening. We're going on to introductions. Item A, workshops. We have no workshops. We will now move on to the consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the council may request an item be removed from the consent calendar, and it will be considered separately. Alicia, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on a consent calendar item?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. I will now ask for a motion from my colleagues.
Mayor, move to approve consent calendar as presented.
I second.
Motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilmember Stephen Montes, seconded by Councilwoman Anita Evans. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos, absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0 with Councilmember Gallegos being absent.
Thank you very much. Item C, there are no public hearings. We will now move on to item D, petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. Item D1 has already been removed for future consideration, so we will move on to D2, second amended lease agreement from WSD LLC to California Pacific Investments. I believe, Mr. Moss, you have this item?
Hello, Mayor. Yes, thank you. And let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Mayor, members of council, this is a relatively short one, and this is pertaining to a hangar space out at the airport. So the background on this is a picture of the hangar here. It is one of our smaller hangars on the north end of the airport, which is still a rather large hangar, but one of the smaller ones in that area. It was originally built and signed, the lease agreement, with David E. Woods back in 2005. It was transferred to WSD LLC in 2007, which technically was the same owner, so there wasn't much change. That lease expires December of 2035. The original annual agreement of $3,726 with an increase every 5 years based on the Urban Consumer Price Index was the lease agreement. The proposed amendment, so this lease was sold to, or in the process of being sold to California Pacific Investments. So the proposed amendment will transfer that lease in its entirety to the new owner. The lease will come under the ownership of California Pacific Investments, which some of you might know as Madeira Jet Center. And I'll show you in the next picture where they're at. They're the current owner of one hangar out at the airport. The intended use will be for commercial property. Currently, the hangar is for private property, and they intended to use it for commercial property. So we will be coming back to council actually with a few additional amendments to the lease agreement, if you so agree, probably next council. So this is just an overhead view of the hangar that we're actually talking about. That's in the square here. I think you can see my mouse, but this is Madeira Jet Center, their current property. And the impact to the airport, there will be no impact to the operations of Madera Community Airport. This will provide a long-term lease. It expires currently at 2035. We are actually probably interested in extending that, which again, we'll be bringing to you at a later date. And it does increase growth of the local business out at the airport. So with that, our recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving the assignment of the second amended lease agreement from WSD LLC to California Pacific Investments for airport hangar space. And is there any questions?
Bringing it back, any questions from Mr. Foss from my colleagues? I see Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Foss, the intended use as commercial property, what does that entail? Do you mind if I ask that? What does that entail?
So the biggest change will be that they'll be able to sell fuel to people that are using the hangar space. So if it is a private hangar, then they'd only be able to store planes there. Because Madeira Jet Center, a lot of their business revolves around maintenance of airplanes, then the selling of fuel to planes that are stored in the hangar is a big part of the commercial operation. There will be some other minor ones, but not. So again, commercial, they will be doing some maintenance of airplanes inside the hangar, but most of that will be done in their main hangar. But they want that added to the amendment at a later date.
Yeah, so just to clarify again, I think your staff report did specify something about fuel. So when it says commercial, that just means commercial surrounding the airport industry, right? Like
correct.
You said.
Correct. Yeah, maybe I should have clarified that. It would not be like selling of almonds or something. It's solely for commercial use of airport related activities.
Thank you.
I do not see any further hands raised. Lisa, do we have any public comments on this issue from the public?
No, Mayor, no public comment.
Okay, then I will bring it back to council for a recommendation.
Mayor, move to approve item D2 as presented.
I second it.
Mr. Artemio, did you second it?
Yes.
Motion to approve item D2 made by Councilmember Stephen Montes, seconded by Councilmember Artemio Villegas. Alicia, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Gallegos, absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with Councilmember Gallegos being absent.
Thank you very much, Alicia. We
Thank
will
you,
now move
everybody.
on to item. Thank you, Mr. Foss, also for that. We will now move on to item E, administrative reports. Item E1, retail sales tax update recommendation. This report is submitted for informational purposes and action is not being requested from the City Council at this time. Mr. Roger Sanchez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Roger Sanchez, Finance Director. Just wanted to give you an update on the results of the sales taxes for the fourth quarter of the calendar year 2020. That is from October to the end of December of 2020. So that captures the Christmas shopping and all of that. So we have a few results. What I wanted to do this time is change it slightly so that you can try it. I would like to share the report that is shared by the consultants. Of course, I remove any confidential information, but I thought it would be interesting for you to see what we obtained here at the city, and at that point you can provide some feedback as to the things that you liked or disliked. So with that, I'm going to share my screen with you. So this is the immediate results. So there's some good news and some somewhat challenging news, as I will explain in more details. But at the summary level, what I'd like to show you right off the bat is the city of Madera. This is the county as a whole. That is the total. So we have the city the unincorporated county, and the city of Chowchilla. And you have the count here. The main number here as a result is the fourth quarter of $1.9 million that was recorded for the sales taxes. And so this represents close to 54% of the total sales taxes in the county. So the city of Madera gets the majority of the revenue related to sales taxes. Now, this 1.9 million, if you compare it to the same period the year before, for the fourth quarter of 2019, you can see that there was an increase of 3.1%. Now, this sales of 3.6 excludes the internet sales. The internet sales is a separate line item, and so you can see the increase of 3.1%, and for the county of 1.8%, and a negative change for the city of Chowchilla. So this is the most important, the best summary as to the revenue that we received. With that, I'd like to show you some of the details. It's going to look slightly busy. However, I'm just going to point to you a few line items that I think they're of interest. So if you notice, this is broken by different counties, and it gives the different industries on the details. So, for example, the county of Madera, we can see the total. This is a better data because it includes adjustments and timing differences. So this takes into account this, whereas this is more on basis. So this is the more relevant. And again, you can see the fourth quarter of 2020 comparing it to the fourth quarter of 2019. And you can see an increase. At this time, it does include the internet sales that you can see right there of an increase of 28.8%. Now, at the same time, you can kind of see which industries are have decreased, including the building. In this case, the business and industry has a decrease. The fuel has a decrease of over 9%, and also the restaurants as well, with a huge gain on the internet sales. But what is interesting is that you can kind of gauge right off the bat the different counties, how they're doing as well on the changes. And overall, if we look at the total for the state, you can see that there's a decrease. What's interesting on this summary for the state totals is that there's some industries that are really still hurting in a significant way. Over here on the food, the fuel, general consumer goods, restaurants and hotels. And again, you can see the internet sales as a saving grace, but overall the businesses are definitely continue to hurt. And if you recall, this was much worse on the second quarter, right in the midst of the pandemic. That was much worse if you recalled the previous meetings. So this is another interesting piece of information right here. This is for the entire state. This is not pertain to the county or to the city, but it tells you a ton of information. This is the impact, the sales taxes of the local 1%. If you look at the history on different years, you look at the brick and mortar. How right here during the Great Recession right here, there was a decrease, and now you look at during the pandemic, such a big drop over here on the sales taxes. Of course, this is an immediate conditions of the economy in the state, and this is why it's kind of a bad news. We have the revenues for the city, but for the state and for some businesses, they're still hurting. And you can see you have a decrease of a growth of 8.6% negative. But look at the online sales, and the increase is such a drastic increase. And the bigger question becomes, well, is it because of the pandemic that there's a drop on the brick and mortar, or is it more of because of the shift in shopping behavior that we can see? And so is that going to stay on the brick and mortar more and more because of the online sales? So that seems, we have to see that in the future, but this has got to be concerning for a lot of the retail businesses. It's a big change in how businesses are and consumers are behaving at this point. This is another excellent summary. So again, if we look at the total here, and we can see the fourth quarter of 2020 and do a comparison with the previous year, and we can see the dollar change, but the percentage change. And at this point, we can see that the fuel stations and also the restaurants are in a better shape, but it's mainly the fuel station, as you can see. So this is the same information, but on the chart, and you can see the at the end of December, how does it compare to the previous year on the internet sales? A big increase on the internet sales, and then you can kind of see the comparison on the other industries. As you can see, again, the fuel is the one that has a decrease, and the others are more on a recovery mode. This is the same information, except that it's a little bit more broken down, and you can see the city of Madera compared to the county and to the state. And a few more details as far as where we see the most sufferings. We can see this on the service stations. We can see on the petroleum and production equipment right there. Casual dining, big decrease across in the city and as well as in the state. Electronics and appliances, contractors, decrease. Auto repairs, they're suffering. And the convenience local stores with liquor as well. This right here is the same as above, except that again it's broken down more in a more summarized version, except that you can see how does it compare to the county and to the state. Again, I mentioned this before, but look at the state level. There's a lot of downturn at this point on this industries right on the bottom. This is another really good piece of information because it gives a trend of multiple quarters and multiple years. And again, what this shows is the internet sales, the jump. You can tell this jump, and on the different industries, you can see where they stand and how they've been affected on the different quarters. This chart, not a whole lot other than it gives you a regression line, so you can kind of see that, that there's a little bit of a growth there, so you can visualize that. Another really good chart right here because it does some comparisons with different cities in the region, as you can tell. This is the darker green is the city of Madeira. One of the things that is somewhat I was surprised to see is that on the third quarter, that is from July through September, there was a recovery. You can see, but then it's going down, and this is spending per capita. So there's a reversal of progress from what we can tell. At the same time, if you look at the history, it's not too far off from the history. Again, we have to provide some context or think about it. What does that mean with the internet sales as well? But you can see the comparisons on per capita spending on the different cities. So similar, except that this has the city compared to the county on the bottom. And notice that there's a per capita spending is increasing at the state level and in the region level, but it's decreasing in Madeira. This is another interesting summary because it provides a projection of where we think we're going to land, or the consultants think we're going to land at $10.3 million. But notice that they're projecting the revenues to be flattened out in the upcoming few years. So it's going to be consistent throughout. One of the things that they mentioned, the consultant mentioned that it was unique and different was the fact that the online sales, they are projecting to decrease more from the fact that one of the big retail stores, well, it's Amazon, they're changing the way they store their products. That is, they're going to have ownership of the products, and they find a way of reducing the sales taxes. So we expect the reduction of sales taxes in the future because of how they're going to structure things. Not necessarily because there's going to be less sales, but rather how they're going to structure things. And so that's kind of a bad news in itself. So this is the same summary. It gives you a projection. If you look at the forecast, the total of 10.2 million and in a different year, but it's just broken by the different quarters. So this is a nice quick chart that it shows you the historical. This brown is the average price per gallon, and this is the taxable sales in gallons. You can see the sales of gallons, a big drop during the pandemic for fuel. Another summary, except that this is broken by the different quarters. The same information as before. It just gives you on a quarterly basis. Now, this is Measure K right here. So Measure K, again, if you look at the quarter of fourth quarter of 2020 and compare it to the previous year, you can see that there was a slight, very, very modest increase, almost the same, but you can see where the differences are again on the fuel stations and on the business and industry, but mainly the fuel stations. Again, if you look at the comparisons between the two on the different industries, you can see where things are. So with that, I'll open up if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Roger. I would ask my colleagues, Mr. Jose Rodriguez, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, thank you, Roger. I always find it interesting when you provide us this data. I think it's very important for us to know, especially when we're trying to make decisions with respect to our general fund. So you mentioned two things that kind of had me worried a bit there, but obviously consumer behavior has changed quite a bit, not only with COVID. I think the brick and mortar was already hemorrhaging prior to the COVID. And I think, we've kind of seen now where that's at, especially with the rise in online sales. But you mentioned something about Amazon structuring their way they sell stuff so that they can avoid possibly some sales tax. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting to, but do we collect data on certain big warehouses type of Amazon deal where we get the materials revenues? Do we have any of that data is available?
No, we don't. I did have some questions to the consultants in regard to those warehouses, and what he explained is that if some of those online retails, if they have a warehouse, they don't pay sales taxes, but if they do have a distribution center, that's when they pay sales taxes. The nuances become as to if they say, well, the company owns a lot of the products, and therefore that's when they can make some adjustments as to how they can pay. And there's a lot of information on that is on the legal side that I'm not an expert on, but they did mention that over $200,000 is expected to be reduced from online sales, not because there would be less sales, but rather because of the structure.
And that was directly to Madera County or Madera City?
Yes.
Yeah, and again, I think the consumer behavior has certainly shown us that this is the way people are going to be shopping. I think everyone in this panel here can certainly attest to how powerful Amazon is when you want to order something, especially when they deliver it quickly. So I think that's certainly going to have an impact. But I would like for you to continue, if my colleague would agree, is to continue to extract that data to see how much of that can certainly impact our community. Because as we continue to shop online, obviously that means one thing: these brick and mortar stores will essentially at some point reach a point where they're no longer competing, and we'll start seeing closure on those end. But we start losing out on online sales tax, which is a huge part of the revenue that we're receiving now. And based on your data there, it seems like we'll flatten out at some point. But with this new restructure, I'm a little curious as to how much of that we would actually lose.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands raised. Alicia, do we have any public comment under item E1?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you very much. This is an informational report only, so then we will be closing item E1 without any action. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez, for this report. Moving on, we will move on to item E2. Request of a second one-year extension of the current tax sharing agreement between the City of Madera and the County of Madera. I believe Mr. Arnoldo Rodriguez, por favor. You're muted, sir. Arnoldo, I think you're muted.
There you go. I think I'm unmuted now, correct?
You're good now, brother.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the council, Arnoldo Rodriguez, City Manager. The item before you this evening is a request to extend the tax sharing agreement between the City of Madera and the County of Madera for 1 year for the benefit of both the council and the community. There are generally two forms of tax sharing agreements or master agreements in the state of California between counties and cities. And they generally take into, they could be individual agreements. So every project that's going to be annexed into the city, you could have an individual agreement. which to me would be very time consuming and very challenging because you're negotiating on almost every new project that's on greenfield development or on vacant land. And I believe that would be, I think it would be time consuming and not impossible, but very challenging. The second option readily available to cities and counties are master tax sharing agreements. And that's what the city of Madera and the county of Madera have. These are extremely common, and I think they're the more common form of agreements between cities and counties. And one of the things, the key is there are agreements with how cities grow, and what services do cities provide and what services do the counties provide. And at the same time, it's primarily in terms of when I say how cities grow, it's about how do cities grow geographically in land area as they're annexing property. And so oftentimes most tax sharing agreements have to do with sales tax agreement, development referral. So for example, if there's a piece of property that's on the edge of a city boundary, but it's technically in the county, should it be developed in the city or the county? These agreements stipulate or they identify thresholds of how property develops. Some other common examples are jail booking fees, and that's one common example where it'll articulate who pays for the jail booking fees. So again, the city and the county, we currently have a tax sharing agreement that was executed back in 2017. The original agreement was a 3-year agreement, but it did provide for 2 one-year extensions. Some of the veteran council members that were here a year ago may recall that right when we started at the beginning of COVID-19, the county was going through a transition period with their CAO at the time. And I approached the CAO and I notified them that, hey, I think we may have a challenge here because we're supposed to be negotiating an agreement, but they had gone without a CAO for a brief period. So at the time we agreed, let's extend it 1 year. Since that 1-year timeline has elapsed, my counterpart at the county, the CAO at the county, and I have been meeting. We meet every week, generally for a couple of hours on Thursdays, where we're attempting to structure a tax sharing agreement that we believe would be fair to both parties. At this point, we feel like we've made substantial progress. However, there's still a lot of work to be done. And because the existing agreement is set to expire in a month, rather than try to rush it within the next month, we think it would be appropriate for both parties to agree to extend it for an additional year. However, the hope is that we don't, that I'm not coming back in a year. Rather, the hope is that we can come back much sooner with some framework, at least for discussion purposes. And so we agreed, hey, you know what, let's take this to the county, let's take this to the Board of Supervisors, let's see if we can get their blessing to continue the existing agreement with no changes in it until we can come up with a long-term agreement. I definitely don't want to speak on behalf of the county or my counterpart at the county, but I feel comfortable thinking that we will have a new tax sharing agreement to present to both legislative bodies. A couple of things of the tax sharing agreement, of the existing tax sharing agreement. One of the key provisions of the cities and the counties' existing tax sharing agreement is how do we divide property taxes? So there's real property, which the best way to describe it is the land beneath our feet, and there's the improvement value. The land beneath our feet, the real property, or real land, the county currently retains the taxes for that property. The developed property, so the improvement value, is split between the county and the city 50-50. When I say that, that's after the school district takes their portion. So properties in California are taxed at 1% of the value of the land, and that has to do with Proposition 13, passed by California voters back in 1976, went into effect in 1977. So of the 1% tax rate, the school district in Madera gets 52% of that. That leaves 48%. Of that 48%, the land value is retained by the county. The remaining portion is split 50-50 between the city and the county. So the city does not retain all the property taxes, rather the majority goes to the school district, 52%. The county takes the land value, and then the improvement value is what's split 50-50. And the value of property cannot exceed more than 2% annually. And that's a state statute. Again, that's Proposition 13 that was approved by the voters. A second key provision in our existing agreement is the sales tax. And you just heard Finance Director Roger Sanchez provide a summary of the fourth quarter of 2020 when it comes to sales tax, which is commonly referred to as the Bradley-Burns tax or the sales tax. Currently, the city provides the county 3% of our sales tax. So some of the money that Roger was discussing a short time ago, a portion that does go to the county. 3% of everything the city collects, not including Measure K, goes to the county. On top of that, the city provides the county $50,000, which is allocated to the library system. As we know, there's a library sitting about 2 blocks to the west of City Hall here in Madera, or to the south. And then also the city police department provides response services to the Parkwood area, which is on Avenue 13 and 145. So the question becomes is, what happens if we do not extend the tax sharing agreement? If both parties don't extend it, come June the 5th, so in about a month or so, we would not be able to annex new property into the city. I don't think that would be beneficial to either party because I think we are working towards a long-term solution. I think we're getting closer, but again, we probably just need a little bit more time. Or the alternative is we negotiate every project on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that would be advantageous to either party. And I think it would create a very odd scenario where we're spending a considerable amount of time trying to negotiate on a project by project, where I think we should come up with an agreement that we can collectively agree that serves both parties well. Currently, as part of the extension, there are no proposed amendments. There are no additional financial impacts. It's status quo in terms of how we're operating today. So with that being said, staff is recommending that the council approve a 1-year extension, obviously in hopes that we're not negotiating a year from now, and the extension would expire June the 7th of 2022. As part of that, we continue to meet with the county. We're scheduled to meet with the county both tomorrow and Friday, so 2 consecutive days where we're identifying issues and we're trying to come up with reasonable solutions to some of the items that challenge both parties, both the city and the county. And some of those items can, just for the benefit of the council, have to do with the library, animal control services, sales tax agreement, Parkwood, water in Parkwood specifically, sewer in Parkwood, the Parksdale neighborhood. So those are some of the issues that we've been discussing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor and the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any comments, any questions from my colleagues regarding item D2? I see Mr. Hilda, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just was scrolling through it and I noticed that the title to the resolution is a bit off. And it says a resolution approving 1-year extension to current agreement for purchase and sale of real property. So I think it needs to say that approving a 1-year extension to the current tax sharing agreement between the city and the county. Everything else in the resolution looks fine. And I apologize that I missed that before. I was just scrolling and it just kind of came at me.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I would recommend that correction be made when you make a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Hilda. I actually left out, we were going to buy a bunch of property. No, I'm totally joking. And that was simply an oversight. Sorry.
Okay, I know.
Yeah, there's a key detail.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Hilda, for pointing that out. Mr. Rodriguez, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Arnoldo, so I noticed that on our reports, we get, obviously some percentages and what services we provide. Do we have any real numbers as to how much we collect in revenue with those tax sharing agreements as far as our splits? And then again, maybe an expense of what services we provide. Do we have somewhat of an idea of just to kind of overlook what this whole agreement is it a big cost to the city, or are we collecting enough revenues to offset the expenses that we provide for services?
Well, and let me attempt to respond to that question. When the existing agreement was negotiated, unfortunately, I wasn't here at the city, so I'm not too sure what the context was at the time. The one thing that I can state is, as part of the property tax sharing agreement, the city receives roughly $3.3 million of property tax. And then we also receive a vehicle license tax, which is based on property. And that's a little north of $7 million a year. In terms of providing patrol services to the Parkwood neighborhood, Parkwood has slightly more than 2,000 residents in Parkwood. And if you go by standard operating procedures in terms of the number of police officers per thousand, you generally have one police officer per every 1,000 residents. So in theory, we would have 2 police officers specifically, or in addition to, for the Parkwood area. The population of Parkwood is not considered part of the city right now. So right now we're basing off, we base the number of police officers we have based on the city population, not the city population plus Parkwood. And so so there's obviously a cost for the police officers. In terms of some of the other items, unfortunately, I don't have that information necessarily in front of me. I know I've been ground truthing some of the numbers in terms of what would happen if the city were to annex Parkwood, and what does that split look like. And those are numbers that the county and I have been ground truthing collectively to try to make sure that we're working off the same set of assumptions. Just be certain that there's clarity involved and that we all know what we're agreeing to prior to agreeing to it. What I don't think it would be beneficial to either party to agree percentages without quantifying what those mean in terms of real dollars, because I think that gets to the root of the issue. We need to have a solid idea of exactly what we're receiving in terms of library services, animal control services, those types of items, and what they're costing the county to provide, and at the same time, what is the city paying for, or vice versa? What services is the city providing for county residents, and what does that cost the city? And so those are some of the things we're working on now, but I do not have the figures from 2017.
No, and that's fine, Arnoldo. I wasn't going to put you on the spot there, but that's exactly my point, is that we have something to quantify in regards to this whole tax sharing agreement. But to my point, we will have something, because it seems like there's a reluctancy for us to move on that. I'm not sure if it's due to that we just don't have really hard numbers to determine, like, for example, Parkwood and whatnot. But that one-year amendment, you think that we would have some progress in deciding on what we're going to do with that tax sharing agreement? You think that should be enough?
I'm sure hoping for, and I think the county's hoping for it on their end. I think we both have the same goal. Us, the city staff and county staff, we have the same goal. It's just working towards that goal and ground truthing all of our assumptions. And there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of numbers floating around, a lot of percentages, and just trying to work together to try to make sure that the county feels that they're receiving a fair deal, and at the same time, making sure that the city is receiving a fair deal at the same time.
Yeah, and I hope that in the future, or maybe within a year, we have some type of a resolution over this, because I know this has been going on for some time. But certainly, I would ask that you can quantify that, so that before we make a decision whether we annex or not, we look at the cost of services versus the revenues, and I think that'll make it easier for us to make an informed decision. But thank you, Arnoldo. Appreciate you taking the time to answer my question.
Absolutely.
I see no more hands raised. I assume that there are no more questions for Mr. Rodriguez. Alicia, are there any public comments to this issue?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I will now ask my colleagues for a motion regarding E2.
Mayor, move to approve item E2 with the changes to the resolution title mentioned by the city attorney.
Second.
Motion to approve item E2 by Councilmember Stephen Montes, second by Councilmember Temio Villegas. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos, absent. Councilmember Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with Councilmember Gallegos absent.
Thank you very much for that, Alicia. We will now move on to item F, council member reports, announcements, and future agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for the mayor and council members to make brief reports on boards, committees, and other public agencies and on all public events, to request updates, to initiate future agenda items, and to take action on matters initiated under this section of the agenda. Under this section, the council may take action only on items specifically agendized which meet other requirements for action. Councilwoman Gallegos is absent. Council member Jose Rodriguez, do you have anything?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to take this time and opportunity to wish everyone a happy Cinco de Mayo. Also, the mayor and I had the opportunity to meet through the ad hoc committee, the cannabis ad hoc. And I think as it was expressed before, there is not necessarily an urgency, but there is a CEQA that is deemed, the CEQA is deemed to expire here somewhere mid-summer, maybe in July or so. So I think, there was direction to try to at least bring this back to council. Hopefully dot all our I's, cross our T's, and hopefully we can get an ordinance out and in place so that we can try to get some business into the city of Madera. But I just wanted to share that again, for some of my colleagues in here, CEQA is the California Environmental agency that looks after any projects that might have some type of environmental impact to our to the sites. But I think there is an urgency in that. I'm not sure, Arnoldo, if you'd like to touch on that, but that's just something that the ad hoc had met on, and hope we provided some direction to bring that back to the council.
Mr. Rodriguez, I believe we would need to agendize that if we were going to be discussing it. So at this point, it's reports on boards and commissions by members. So if you would like, please, if we could move on.
Sure, no worries. That was it. I just wanted Arnoldo to comment on that if you needed to make any comments on that, but we are good.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Montes.
Oh, happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody, and nothing else to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Evans.
Yes, I want to say thank you to the city, Arnoldo, for the new stop sign on Kennedy and Tulare. And also I spoke with the family there, and they were really quite excited about even having anything done there, because a car ran the stop sign and went into the yard and up the telephone pole. So thank you so much for that. Also, I want to let everyone know that May the 12th will be Coffee with Councilwoman Anita Evans at Jack in the Box on Yosemite and Tozier. Once again, that's going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's May the 12th. I would like to say thank you to the gentleman that had the food giveaway today for Cinco de Mayo out at the Rancho Market and Taqueria on Road 24 and Avenue 14. It was so good. The food was amazing. The mayor and I were there as normal. We go out and we do what we're supposed to do, and we support. But one thing I can say is they were so blessed to be able to do the things that they were doing. They were excited about it, and the city of Madeira was excited for it. So that was for Cinco de Mayo. Also, the mayor and I were at the Pan Am, and that was the taco and the vaccine. Such a great event, and thank you to the county and the health department for doing that. And I want to say thank you to the fire chief and to Chief Lawson for keeping the meadows safe and getting out here and taking care of the fire, even though the homeless are continually doing what they're doing. And Arnoldo, I want to say thank you to all of you guys for your work that you guys are doing. So that's it, and I return the baton.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Evans. Councilmember Villegas?
No comment.
No comment. Okay, short and sweet. Going to go to Taco Wednesdays. Absolutely. It is a pleasure being out there in the community. I want to thank the staff for the work that you all do, and for the city of Madeira. The joint efforts between the city and the county are also off the charts. I want to thank our safety officers in the fire department for doing all that they're doing. I know that it's a challenge. I know that you're dealing with difficult situations when you go out there. So I want to thank the fire department for everything that you're doing. And also the chief, of course, your staff is out there keeping us safe also. So I want to say that we appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work. And everyone that's in the offices or working from home, that are staff of the city of Madeira, thank you very much, because you are also helping our community to do as best we can during the difficult times. Please continue to be safe. Please continue to wear a mask and do social distancing. We will get through this together. Hopefully, with the grace of God, we will be able to get back to normal at some time soon. Take care of yourselves with the heat. Don't be confident that you can go out there and not be aware of the heat. The heat can be very dangerous. So thank you very much for your participation in the meeting tonight. We will now be moving onto closed session. Ms. Montoya, would you please take us to closed session?
I will do that. Under G1, you have conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives are Arnoldo Rodriguez, Wendy Silva, and Che Johnson, and the employee organizations are General Bargaining Unit / Madeira Affiliated CEA, 2, Mid-Management Employees Group, 3, Madeira Police Officers Association, and 4, Law Enforcement Mid-Management.
Thank you very much for that, Hilda. It is now 7:02, and we will adjourn the meeting of the City Council for now and go into closed session. Thank you very much and good night. The city council meeting. It is 7:11. Hilda, would you please make the report on the closed session?
Certainly, Mayor. The city council met in closed session. Councilmember Gallegos was absent, and there's no reportable action from the meeting.
Thank you very much for that. I will now call for the adjournment. The meeting is adjourned at 7:11 p.m. And I want to thank everyone for their participation in tonight's meeting. Get better.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Bye.
Good night. Good night. Thanks.
Good night.